Welcome to the Constructing Mindsets podcast. This podcast is about having real, honest conversations and shining a more positive light on the construction industry. Hearing from people across the trades, on-site and in leadership roles. It also connects with the wider work I do, supporting site leaders and managers, improve communication, mindset and problem solving through online modules, in-person workshops and coaching. Thanks for joining us on this one. Let's get into the episode. This evening, I'm super happy to have Jesse Tuke on the podcast with us tonight. He works as business development manager for First Homes in Tauranga. He also does a lot of TV work, works for SailGP, America's Cup. And yeah, how are we going to tackle everything tonight, Jesse? That's probably the biggest question that I have for you. I don't know how to. You've got your TV side of stuff you do stuff with SailGP, America's Cup, but also a business development manager for a house building company in Tauranga. Like, how do we package everything up there and get it across to the people so they know what you do, how you do it in the best possible way?
Well, considering I don't quite know the answer to that, I don't know how we're going to do it for everyone else. But no, we'll try. I mean, it is two very different things, and every now and then you kind of have to wonder what hat you're wearing. But I think there's a few correlations that I reckon we might draw a long bow from time to time. But I think there is some stuff there that does bring the two industries slightly closer together.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I know you from when we were both at school in Auckland. We kind of finished a few years apart from each other there, and I know we now work in the same industry. But kind of what sort of has taken you? How have you got to where you are? Like a bit of a life update or a career update from sort of your TV stuff and then into business development role that you're in now.
Yeah, so I guess it's probably 6-7 years since I graduated with a theatre degree from Victoria University in Wellington, and now I'm in this role in the midst of the construction industry. I'm probably the only person that's ever gone from a theatre degree in Wellington to construction in Tauranga. I'd be happy to be proven wrong, and if someone is out there, I'd love to have a drink with you. The story really is pretty relationship based. So my partner Julia, her and her brother have a construction company here in Tauranga, First Homes. And yeah, about 6 years ago, it kind of got to that point in my life where Julia and I had been together for a long period of time. I was looking at where I was going to go. Was I going to kind of keep chasing the dream of being on television and doing commentary and, that side of things? Or, we were going to kind of settle down. And fortunately, I kind of got the best of both worlds, where I moved here and got involved in First Homes and have kind of gone from being a lackey on site, just swinging a hammer to help out on a wheelbarrow from time to time, to being pretty involved. And so, it's now my full-time gig, with the side of they let me go away from time to time to go to a SailGP gig or an America's Cup and have that time away. So it was an adventure for me. I left Wellington, a totally different side of life, doing presenting and theatre and performing arts, and then just slowly found my way ticking away in construction, and just kind of got a roll on and said, this is actually a really cool industry, a great lifestyle, and it's challenging, it's difficult, it's bloody annoying, and everything in between. And obviously having that relationship with Jules and her connection to the industry brought me into it. But I'm kind of, one of those things I look back and go, would I have got here any other way? And maybe I would have, but now that I'm in the midst of it, I kind of feel quite comfortable and really happy that I'm in construction.
Nice. And for people listening, we can maybe touch on a bit of how you got exactly maybe in your role and what your role entails. But for people listening at the moment, what does a normal week look like for you currently?
So this week we moved a transportable house that we built in the yard up to the Coromandel. And outside of that, we're very lucky to be partnered with a developer out of Auckland, not-for-profit, called the Housing Foundation. So we're build partner for them. So we're delivering terrace housing out in Omokadawa. So split my time out that way. And then, kind of in between, I'm in the office doing some sales, doing some planning. And I guess last week I was in Abu Dhabi for the SailGP Grand Final, and trying to manage the two of those is a fun one, but one that has its own challenges from that logistical sense. But it keeps things pretty pretty busy and means you got to be very good at what you do when you're here in NZ and yeah, be good with jet lag, I guess.
How do you manage that, really?
Well, I mean, this year's probably the least amount of overseas work I've done, or GP work or a cup, and that's probably just a natural progression of being more involved in the business now that I'm in Tauranga, and it's just kind of gradually stepped up because you can't do it all, and especially in construction where it's so hands-on. I'm not overly hands-on, but you know, in the general sense, I think it's kind of good to have these set goals, because you're like, I genuinely go away next week, so like this big list of stuff that has to get done, and if it's not done, then you just have to deal with it and pick up the phone on, you know, when you're away, and it kind of just makes, I think it makes sense, and you can do it. You can do a lot away from site, but there's physical things that you just can't do and manage, so that's where the team around you is absolutely critical. I think being an open office and having everyone across what each other's doing, in a sense, I know that probably goes both ways, where you do someone else's job completely, but I think the way that we operate is that I know what someone else is kind of working on, and likewise they do. So whether it's for me or if someone else is away, and you can kind of lean on each other and pick something else, I think that's really important. Yeah, communication I think is probably the best thing, and that goes with the team, making sure that people are across what you're doing, but likewise, like client side is the most important thing, I think, in anything. So making sure that if you're going away for a weekend or a long weekend away, that they know what's happening, and they know that if they can't reach you, they can reach someone else in the team, or that you are just an email away. It is a tricky one, and I don't like doing it. It's hard, and you know, sometimes you kind of feel a bit anxious and worried that you're away and things, but I'm very confident that nothing gets kind of dropped by the wayside in that scenario. Everything kind of just gets lifted to either make sure it gets done before you go, or someone will just slot in and fill that role if you are away. It's not always the case, but it's not always the case with a lot of things in the industry. So I generally think it's got a lot of positives to it. But certainly, yeah, it can be pretty difficult.
You talked about a lot going on within both sides of your sort of career there. Sort of what drew you into construction? Was there something that particularly grabbed you and you wanted to kind of experience there?
I think I probably sit in a space, like a lot of Kiwis, that I feel like my life revolves around construction in some way. Like whether it's growing up, there was, you know, mum and dad dabbled in a little bit of development, or you had uncles or aunties and family friends. And I just feel like whether it was people just building houses or doing development, or there's certainly a lot of people that are attached to that construction, whether it's a construction dream, or, you know, whether it's just the mindset of construction, or feeling like New Zealand's economy revolves around that from a media perspective or a government perspective. It feels like sometimes it's the only thing that people ever talk about. And I think I mean, I love it, so I'm happy to talk about it, but I do feel like there was so much of that growing up in a lot of different ways that it felt quite natural to go to. And yeah, so when it kind of came around of getting involved in it, it didn't feel like this massively foreign thing, even though it was nothing I'd actually ever worked in or studied in. It kind of felt natural to be interested by it and want to learn more. And that's probably the biggest thing for me, was wanting to learn. And I've kind of probably got that thought process that I can go into a lot of things and feel confident in and go, I can talk about that or make do with a situation. But construction, I was always really keen to go, I want to learn more. Like genuinely from a building sense, I'd love to be able to go out and do more and be way more hands-on and DIY and a bit more of a man's man. I think we all dream of that sometimes. Likewise, there's so much to the industry, whether it's from like an engineering sense or a government policy side of things, local government, whatever it might be. I think there's so much to construction, and it's all very exciting, difficult, you know, very different. There's so many different ways you can go with it. But at the end of the day, I think it relates back to so many people, whether it's your family, your friends, or just someone that you meet off the street that you've never met before. Most of the time, you'll be able to draw some similarities back to construction or building or housing. just to me feels like it, whether it's right or wrong, is the life, just like the beating heart of New Zealand is building.
Yeah, it's kind of like building, like construction and like farming in New Zealand is like the two biggest things you kind of associate with New Zealand, I think, to be honest. Maybe a bit of forestry as well, but yeah.
Yeah, bit of forestry, bit of tourism,
Yeah, yeah, probably left out tourism. Yeah, that's a
a bit
big
of
part.
sailing maybe.
A bit of sailing, yeah, tourism, sailing, yeah, they're probably two big key ones as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so your role at First Homes there, like sort of what do you do as a business development manager, just to give a bit of an insight for somebody who's listening that might not know what business development manager does for a house builder?
Yeah, I think our roles are slightly different. First Times, our general makeup is a bit smaller. Like, we're not a massive team, that kind of bit more family owned group house builder. But with that, you probably cover a few more roles than, say a bigger company. So in the business development role, on the coalface, it'll be dealing with someone that walks in the door and it either has a section or looking to buy a section, and they've got some ideas, and it is just that first meet right through to getting plans done, putting plans into council, and being a salesperson for that client, right through till the end of their build. It's on, I guess, the bigger side of things, and it's probably where we've been more busy in the last couple of years, is that business development role where you're actually kind of speaking, I guess, more to a developer and working with a developer on their bigger plan of building 20 houses and how they go about that, and kind of have that early involvement with plans, pricing, whatever it might be, and working with them in a lot more detail on what they're looking to achieve on a bigger scale, and how we can help them do that from a construction sense, pricing sense, and kind of working through those processes. So I think there's just the pure sales side where we have someone, mum and dad, come in, they want to build a house on a section, and we go through that process, which is nice, clean, fun. And then on the bigger side of things, that more business development role of actually working through a kind of larger scale project with a developer.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, sort of was when you got into construction, maybe I should have asked this before, but was it what you expected when you first got into it?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. You're definitely putting out a lot more fires than I thought. And I think that's a lot of industries though. You kind of go into something and you go, there's a lot more curveballs. It's never what you expect. And you're kind of constantly battling away. I do think construction is like another level of that, where you just are constantly kind of working through things. But I reckon that's the beauty of it, because it's so, on your toes the whole time. And it's not always like that. There's some stuff that's great and easy on the construction side of things, but then outside of that, there's always other stuff to deal with. At least the way we try and operate is kind of being helpful outside of the building side of things as well. So that might be someone helping them with their bank loan, or helping them talk to a broker, or go through the resource consenting process. And we often find ourselves probably maybe doing too much that side of things, but it makes it kind of exciting that you're doing lots of different things, and it's just always so different, and you bang your head against the wall a lot of times and go, why are we doing this? But then I'm pretty happy to say 99% of the time you get to the other end and you go, I'm glad we did that.
It's a great answer, and yeah, I think and still learning for me is sort of that pre-build phase of the construction industry. Like, there's working with councils on compliance, getting through resource consents, like meeting with councils before you start. Like, it's a whole nother, can be a whole nother full-time job just in itself, working at the front end of some of these projects. And it's cool that you kind of see both sides of it. And yeah, that is a lot. There is so much to deal with, not just putting the house up when you get to a site. It seems like that's kind of the easier part out of the whole process.
Yeah, and I think it's only getting, there's so much stuff going on in the background. What's the RMA going to look like, and this, and, it's the biggest talked about thing ever. But at the end of the day, building a house in a simple form, a traditional house, I'm not talking about a big architectural, forever home, just someone's, first house or an investment property. The actual construction of it, for the most part, is pretty easy. It's everything else that goes with it. The pre-built stuff, like you said, that is the is the difficult part. And I think I'm kind of on the side of things like, yeah, I'm sure there's stuff that can be easier. Things could happen faster. We could do less engineering, whatever it might be, but that's just not the reality on the country we live in. Have to do these things. I don't think there's any way around it. And you just got to knuckle down and go, that's the process, smash it out.
Kind of a good transition to talk through challenges and mindsets that you've got. Sort of what challenges have you faced in your role so far? What's your process on dealing with those challenges and sort of keeping a positive mindset through them?
I think the industry's been in a very challenging position in general for the last 5 years. We kind of saw this massive growth, and with that, we had just products that were unavailable, materials just you couldn't get your hands on them, and there was that massive just rush and build quickly. There's just this frantic kind of nature of construction for a while, and then it just fell off the cliff completely. And kind of finding your feet in between amongst the compliance and changing governments and, worry about interest rates and inflation and every single one of those things attaches to construction, and every single one of those attaches to someone sitting at home wondering if they're going to build a house or if they can build a house or even if they want to build a house. And to be honest, I reckon through all that crap that goes on, if I was sitting at home wanting to build a house, I'd probably go, what's the point? Like it sounds absolutely horrible, like to go through that process. Like it sounds like it's going to be expensive. It's going to be a pain in the ass. And there's all these people on the other end that have gone through it and gone, it was not a good idea. And I think we need to do something massively in the country to literally flip that on its head and genuinely change the mindset of building houses, because there's a lot of stuff that we're not going to change here. There's some stuff that we can change, and I think is changing in a positive way. But fundamentally, I think as Kiwis, we can dip into the negative side of things a little bit too much, and whether it's right or wrong. And I'm kind of hesitant to say it because I do think you need to question the way that things are done in the industry. So you shouldn't just roll through and go, well, let's just get on with it, and we're not going to change it, so we may as well build now, and the cost is the cost, and we have to do the compliance stuff, so let's just build. I don't think that's quite right. I think you can do both. I think you can challenge where things aren't being done correctly in a way that might have some positive change. Otherwise, I think you can be on the other side and still go, well, you can still do things in a good way, even though there's a lot of difficulty around it. Let's still make it a fun, enjoyable, carefree process for someone and help them get into their home in the least stressful, least annoying way possible, and hopefully put them at the other end that is someone living in the house that is with their family, or it might be an investment property that they've put their savings into. And there's a lot of people doing that. There's a lot of good companies around New Zealand helping people do that. But I think we can all look at the numbers and go, we can do it a hell of a lot more as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because you touched on communication earlier and mindset just there. Like, obviously this podcast is about hopefully constructing a positive mindset for the industry. But what's maybe one thing that you have seen that maybe is hard in the industry to keep that positive mindset? I know things with costs, inflation, timelines blowing out for buildings and things like that. Like, where do you see maybe some of those small wins on site each day with sort of a bit more of a positive mindset?
Yeah, I think just being, you talked about the communication side of things. I think everyone wants to be better communicators and communicate with people. But likewise, I think surround yourself with people that can challenge you and kind of go, yeah, we can do it that way, but how about this way? And then you get to a result where you've actually come up with something that's better than what you strive to do. And like the long-term result of that's like really, really positive. And it doesn't come from necessarily a confrontational point of view, but it comes from somewhere of going, yeah, that's good, but how about this? And sometimes that will work, sometimes it won't. I think as Kiwis, like we're innovators and we should be striving to do things better. So I think people kind of building each other up on site and seeing something going, that's awesome, how about this, is great. But it's hard. I get when you go to work, you can kind of fall into the, 7 till 5 and just kind of get on with things. But I think encouraging people to try and do more is a really difficult thing to do. But I think most people want to do more when they go to work, and they want to be better and build better, and trying to encourage that kind of community or that kind of workspace is a real challenge to do. But yeah, I think for me, going on to site, it's trying to build a team around you that feels comfortable and feels confident to enjoy themselves and genuinely build stuff that we're proud of. And I think when you're doing that, you hope someone goes home at the end of the day and it's not, you know, reluctant to come to work the next day. And likewise, then you've got a product that your client comes to see and they go, oh, wow, we can actually see that someone's put an effort in. They've swept up the floor at the end of a work day, or they've, gone that extra mile. And it's a bit of a cliche, but like, I do think that you try and kind of better people around you to want to do more, but then it's also very difficult to do that. Like it's a hard game to be in, to want to do more when you kind of feel the pressures from whatever it might be, economic conditions and things. So it's trying to build this space that I guess people are happy, hopefully making money, that they can, put an extra bit of effort in.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's like you said, trying to stay positive and trying to put a positive outlook on things. But when the world around you maybe isn't reflecting that, can be a little bit tricky to do, and maybe it could sometimes maybe just be seen as sort of making it up as you go, rather than just sort of generally wanting to help and motivate people or help the process.
Especially with the client side of things, and again, it's a lot of the outer chatter of what happens around people talking about councils or over engineering or, health and safety stuff. You kind of, on the client side of things, you see it quite a lot where people, their instant tendency is to say, I bet council's a pain in your ass or something like that, or, and I try and stay really far away from that of like, but that's their role, and it means that you're going to have a safe house. And because there's no point getting into it, I think like, council at times could do better jobs. Likewise, I could do a better job at certain things I do. Like I'm sure you could, I'm sure the way that they operate, and go, we could probably all collectively be better. But focusing in on like one person and going, they're crap, like let's just put everything on there, and just like starts from the get-go of like a build on the outset going like council or this takes ages. I just really try and stay away from it and go, well, this is the process, this is how we get through it, and we'll try and make it as smooth for you as possible. Yeah, that's one thing I try and stay away from, I'd say, and a big kind of takeaway point for me is that, like, try and keep away from the blame game of putting it onto someone else in the industry. I think that happens a lot, and I reckon it's one thing that everyone can kind of go, you can put responsibility on certain people and you can shine light on things that aren't maybe as good as they can be. But particularly for clients, I think that's stuff that, we're in that situation, you can tell them what's going on, but don't make it that's the biggest thing, and your build's delayed because council took a week longer than they should have. It's kind of like, well, they put a week extra work into your plans to make sure it's extra functioning. But don't worry, we'll make it up in the build process, because I don't think anyone wins from that mentality, but I could be wrong. We need to be way more like scrutinizing of every person in the industry, but I don't know. I don't think it's helpful at times.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's helpful either. I think sort of for me, project managing a site or multiple sites, it's focusing on what I can control and how I can do my job to my best ability. Like I can't control how long the council or the architect or the engineer spend on a certain thing. All I can do is try and, ask them if they've got everything they need from me or the company I'm working for, if there's anything I can do to help the situation to speed it up, or any, I think for me the biggest thing is just focusing what I'm doing in that time, rather than, like you said, pointing the finger at whoever to say, this is taking too long, we need an answer now. Because I think most of the time everybody knows you need an answer now. It's just some people have got to go through their own processes and their own things to make sure that they're doing the correct, safe job and the right job for their business or their council or whatever. I think it's, for me, it's just focusing on what I can control in that situation. That's probably one of the biggest things I look at before, sort of jumping up and down, screaming down the phone at somebody, because I wouldn't be too happy at myself at the end of the day if I get home and I'm like, I called up somebody and screamed at the phone for them for 5 minutes. Like, what did that achieve at the end of the day?
But like, I mean, I've certainly done it, and you catch yourself like in those scenarios, right? And you go like I was an absolute dick today in that scenario. And I think that is just the nature of everything that comes around, of like, things get stressful. There's a lot on the line. It's massive investments from a lot of people, and you feel that pressure coming down onto you. And at times you then push it onto other people as well, which happens. And I think we've all kind of done it. But I think, I hope that it happens and you go, actually take a step back, go, look, hand up. That wasn't the right way to do it. And all right, let's kick off things tomorrow. This is what we're trying to do, and let's tackle it this way. Because I think we've all been there where it's pretty easy to, get grumpy on a phone call.
Yeah, like that's the shortcut. Like, that's going to be that fastest way for you to get rid of your emotion or your, the sense of responsibility that you have at that time. That's the easiest way to get rid of it, is to try and blame somebody. But I believe that the most helpful way is to ask those sort of open questions. How can I control this or not control the situation? How can I look at what I'm doing in this situation to try and benefit this outcome? For me, that's probably one of the biggest things, and try and stay positive through any problem that arises on site. I know probably a few people I've worked with that will probably laugh at that, because there has been times where I haven't stayed positive, but you look back on those times, you're like, yep, again, hand up, that wasn't my best moment, but going forward, at least I know now that I know not what to do.
Yeah.
And the next time this rolls around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Any advice for others sort of navigating similar challenges at the moment? Like, how do you, like you talked about sort of being a bit positive in that, like how do you sort of keep grounded in those moments?
This is definitely one, like, I think you kind of get through the processes a lot, and so many times you look back and go, I wish I did that sooner, or, in hindsight, probably should have just front-footed that or done. And I reckon that's a fundamental, is one I'm still learning and trying to be better at, is just as soon as something comes in the door, it is actioned and not necessarily resolved, but it starts moving. And I don't think anyone ever intentionally bottles things up or keeps things. I think there's a lot of pressures in the industry that lead to things being kept and people worrying about the end result of certain things. And there's a lot more that comes to that. So trying to be just proactive on everything comes back to that communication thing, whether it's something that pops up on a build with a client or something internally with the team. It's about just trying to be proactive on that, and certainly not hiding things. But I think a lot of that mindset comes from people really, well, certainly like for me, I want a really good result for someone. And again, as cheesy as it sounds, like care deeply about a build that we're doing for someone. So if we have if there's a excavation that uncovers something that you didn't know was there, the instant, sometimes the mindset can be, wow, this is a massive cost. And I kind of almost try and shield, that, but you got to go, no, sorry, this is the scenario. This is what we're dealing with. We're going to get through it as best as possible, but this is what's happening. Here it is. Let's look at it and let's deal with it. And I think there's a lot of people that probably have, not front-footed things. And that's certainly a big work on for me. It's just being open, honest. You're certainly never trying to do anything in a bad way, but it's about, just really putting things on the front foot.
Yeah, so I think it's a good example of that for me is like, if I know I have a tough phone call to make, about a cost or something that's not, I don't know, it could be anything, just a tough phone call. I try to get those done in the morning, so you're not thinking about it all day. That's one thing that, I don't know, it sort of works for me, is to try and get it action and get it tidied away. You talked about sort of something coming in and actioning it straight away. For me, I tend to try and do some of the stuff, maybe if there's a phone, like a phone conversation, getting that done and dusted early in the morning, and then it's kind of, hopefully by the end of the day, there's, there might be a resolution or something like that. That's in the process. If you wait till the end of the day, it just doesn't, for me, most of the time it doesn't end well, because someone else might find out about it, or
Yeah.
that's one thing that I find is good, helpful.
Yeah. And it's sometimes along the way that gives you those great joys of being in this industry, where you are in a shit scenario and you work through it and you find a great result and everyone can, cheer and sing and dance. But that's not the reality all the time. And I wish things were perfect all the time. I'm sure we all do, but that's just not the nature of the industry. And just front footing it and going, that isn't going right, but this is how we're dealing with it. This is what we're doing from here.
And kind of moving into the last couple sections, connections and culture around yourself and your team there, Jesse. How do you find and build strong relationships in the industry?
Yeah, so like our team's quite an interesting one, because it's, in the core, it's myself and my fiance Julia that kind of head up the office, and then it's Julia's brother Daniel, who owns First Homes with Julia. So our kind of core team there is family. So whether we like it or not, we're we're pretty in the mixer with each other. And then outside of that, we've got some really close people, whether it's our one of our PMs, Dean, or the builder, Ethan. Like, we've got these core people that surround us, that we've got this really open communication. Everyone talks and has that good understanding of what each other's jobs are, what clients they're dealing with, what certain elements are of the build. And then outside of that as well, it's dealing with subcontractors and things that we've dealt with and grown relationships over long periods of time. So it's very relationship based from the core right through everyone we deal with. And I don't know, we're certainly not an office that's going out and having these big fun runs and doing these, outside activities together, but we're also quite a tight knit group that will happily go just have a nice casual lunch and catch up with each other, or go for a round of golf or something like that. So trying to nurture that and kind of the relationship being quite personal of nature of who the people are in the business, trying to also take that and open it out to other people that work amongst us or through us. That's certainly a challenge, because I could see how it might be like, it's just a family business, but it's not really. Like, it's quite an open thing. And I don't know, me personally, I'm a pretty talkative person, so I try and talk to people that are on site, whether it's someone that owns one of the contracting companies or whether it's an apprentice that's there. I think for me, I want people to want to come to jobs. That I hope that's the case for a lot of people. It's also, it'd be dumb of me to think that there's people that probably don't as well. And I think that's the way it goes, but we can always improve there.
Cool. And what's a moment that has made you proud? In your career so far?
It's a good question. It's actually probably quite recently, thinking about a real wow, this is pretty special moment. This project we've been on with the Housing Foundation in Omokoroa this year has been it's been special in lots of different ways for us as a company. It's been one of the biggest projects that we've ever been involved with, and with that, it's with a company that is, to me, genuinely doing some epic stuff in New Zealand with housing, and in particular this model that they're operating in Omokoroa, the shared ownership model, delivering great results. We started building in January, and at the end of the year now, we've done a stage that's 28 units, and I think they're close to 20 of those units have families living in them. And a couple of weeks ago, they had a bit of a barbecue for those residents, and that was just a cool moment at the end of this cul-de-sac, looking back on 28 units that we've been lucky enough to build for the Housing Foundation, and see all the families and kids on scooters throwing the ball around, and it was just a really cool setting, and one that was like, okay, this is this is what they do the renders about.
Yeah.
When people think this is what a project's going to look like, and I can't take too much responsibility for it. I mean, there was plenty of smarter people than me that put a lot of time and effort and money into developing it, and what this actual project would look like. But to be on the other end and go, yeah, these people designed it, funded it, but we were the company that was lucky enough to build it. And I look at what we've built and I'm very proud of the quality and the designs of them are epic. That was like a look back on that, especially in the year. Like for us, it's been a massive year. I think collectively as a team, pretty exhausted to be where we are now, but to see, I guess, the end result of what that workload has looked like, and just see that physically there is 20 families that are better off and living in these houses and genuinely so happy, and to come up to you and be like, hey, we love our house. Every now and then they'll say, can you come look at this? I've got a bit of maintenance to deal with. But that's all part of it, right? Like I feel like we've kind of built ourselves into that community where that's it. Like if you kind of just, we do feel, like that's, as a company, probably our proudest moment, and one that we're stoked to be part of. So yeah, it's a cool one.
Oh, cool. I got like probably a couple more questions just around looking ahead for yourself and maybe a company for the future, and then maybe some quick fire questions for you. Is there anything is there anything like you wanted to touch on at all, or?
Not really. I think like there's so many awesome people in the construction industry doing awesome work, and I look around at whether it's yourself or the developers, people that care deeply about New Zealand building houses, and there's lots of sides of it. It's people that are wanting, affordable housing. It's people want the property investor side to flourish, and it's everything in between. And I think there's space for everyone to do that, and it shouldn't be one thing or another. Like I do think we can flourish in all of those areas. New Zealand's got so many great people. It's innovative. It's, I think, I was going to say laid back, like not laid back in the sense that the construction industries, but I do think we don't have to take ourselves so seriously and be so uptight when it comes to talking about policy or council stuff, or that there's just this like overarching thing where it comes to construction and building that I reckon people can get quite wound up about, and rightly so. Like it is stressful, but sometimes I reckon we can just take a step back and go, there's some great stuff going on. Let's just lean into the really good stuff. Embrace the fact that there's a lot of cool things happening. There's some stuff that's going to be better. Let's all get there. It's happening.
Yeah, it's funny you say leaning into the good stuff, because like, I don't know, when I worked at Fletcher's, there's like a saying that they, like with leadership saying, it's like if you've got 10 people there, 2 people are maybe pulling the team down or being negative, lean into the 8 people that are being positive, and then the others will hopefully follow. I think that's kind of a cool saying, is try and take those positive things and connect with those positive people, and then hopefully that brings everyone else along with you.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think like I mean, like I can say it because we're building houses and there's people far above us that are investing the money into the infrastructure and doing the developments that have way more on the line, and are like, yeah, you say it's nice to be positive, but I've got a ton of money tied up in these things that relies on policy and council approving things and government going through these things. But I do think that what we can do is encourage people to feel good about the building process, and can come into something and go, it's not as stressful as it needs to be. So actually, I am comfortable going and spending that amount of money, then builds a house and hopefully fills a section for a developer to then go do some more development. I do think a lot of it does start at the bottom with the person-to-person mindset of, hey, come into the office, have a chat. It's not as scary as it seems. Council's not that bad. Yes, it might be more expensive than it needs to be, but hopefully we can talk you through that process and make an investment that you can see is worthwhile. And that has a flow-on effect up. And likewise, what people are doing a lot higher up has a big flow-on effect down to all of us. And I do think as Kiwis, we can be a collective that can pump each other up very quickly and help each other. But also, we've got to be bloody careful not just to have a crack at each other and pull people down or say it's the developer's fault or us fault or the builder, or, don't fall into that.
That's some great advice. I've started doing this recently, so quick fire questions. Hopefully, I might know a couple of these already from sort of maybe previously knowing you, but anyway, we'll give it a crack anyway. So, are you early mornings or late nights?
Late nights.
Structure or flexibility for you?
Flexibility.
Ocean or job site?
Ocean.
These ones are pretty obvious. Yeah,
Both?
yeah, because it can be a job site for you. Yeah, yeah. All right. What about this? Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Biggest mindset tip for people in construction?
That's a good one. Oh, Vinny, you got me there. Was meant to be quick fire?
Yeah, this is meant to be quick fire.
I was going to say enjoyment, but it's just not, maybe it should be enjoyment, but I think action doesn't need to be necessarily just, keeping things moving.
Yeah. No, cool. I think that's a good one. One word to describe a great crew or team that you've worked with or currently work with?
Agile.
Sweet, nice. I've caught you at a bad time with only coming back you're still recovering from your jet lag and really, really working you overtime on a couple of these questions. Sorry about that. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Run.
Nice. And what's one
That
thing?
was run, not rum. Yeah,
okay, run. R-U-N. Sweet. And what's one thing you wish more people understood about working in the construction industry?
We're all trying to do good things.
It's a good thing to say because you do hear some bad stories about some businesses and things, and maybe things didn't work out for that business. But genuinely, most people out there are they want to do a good job. They want to work together with people, and they want to finish the project, and they want to go on to the next project and keep doing and keep developing the country that we live in. I think it's a good thing to say.
Yeah, and it's not always going to be perfect, and there is, maybe there is the outlier there, but it comes back to that thought process of, I do think there's people a lot smarter than me and doing a lot greater things than me that are out there trying really hard to build houses in New Zealand and make housing more affordable and, get people on the ladder. And yeah, I think that is something that we're doing slowly better at in New Zealand, is realizing actually we are trying to get there. It's just bloody hard, and we're slowly doing what we need to on all sides of the industry to get there.
Oh, cool. Well, it's good to hopefully see that we are getting there. And all right, well, looking ahead for yourself or your team there, Jesse, like what are your dreams for the industry?
Well, I would love that everyone in the industry gets to a spot where they're comfortable in the industry, where they've got confidence in themselves to go and invest and kind of build and develop more or do that kind of thing. But I guess back on like the client side of things, I have dreams that, every family in New Zealand can either live in their own home or be in a position to live in a home that's provided for them. And whether they want to do that or not, there's a lot of people that might not take up that opportunity. I think that we've got good enough people here that we can be building a lot of houses and doing our best to give a platform that a possibility for every Kiwi at an affordable rate to buy a house or rent a house at something that is affordable for them.
Oh, nice. And what would make this a better place to work for everybody?
More roof shouts. Roof shouts they've fallen by the wayside, I reckon.
Yeah, they have 100%.
Yeah.
That was brought up. That was brought up a couple of episodes ago. Someone said that exact same thing. Yeah, they don't exist anymore.
Who was that? I'll invite them to my next one.
Yeah, that was Brandon, a builder in Auckland, actually, on our mates mental health awareness podcast, and he talked about there's probably seen like the least amount of site barbecues or roof shouts or things like that out there. So yeah, that is a real issue at the moment.
No,
a big
but I think
issue.
it kind of, there's, you do it, but everyone's busy and everyone's got so much to do that it can almost be more of an annoyance to try and go to these things because you got so much going on in life. What could I I think just in general, trying to see things from someone else's perspective is probably something I could do a lot better at myself. So I'll kind of probably lean on that and say that if you try and put yourself in someone else's boots for the day and yeah, again, come back to that thing of maybe you realize that, yeah, we're actually all trying to do our best. And again, you can be critical if the best isn't good enough. You're allowed to be critical of those things to try and do things better. I think making people comfortable, enjoying it a bit more, will build us all up a bit, I reckon.
No, awesome. Yeah, Jesse, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Again, long time since chatting to you, but yeah, really appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing your stories and your insights of what you get up to in the country and out of the country. Is there anything you wanted to sort of say or touch on before we close for tonight?
Probably not too much other than when I talk for a living, I hope I haven't blabbed on too much during this podcast about my thoughts, but I just come back to the fact that I do think there's some great people doing some awesome stuff in New Zealand, and the construction industry is one that has some very talented people, which I think we need to acknowledge and encourage people to do more and do what we can around to help those people keep doing the good stuff, because there's some really cool things happening out there, and just have a listen to someone that's doing one of those things and ask some questions. And I reckon we're going to be sitting here in 10 years, I hope so, where we've just got too many houses and everyone's like, why do we build so many?
Yeah, well, I would love to do this again in 10 years with you. If I'm still if I'm doing this in 10 years, then I don't think I wouldn't be too disappointed with myself if I'm still doing this in 10 years time and it's something else. So
no, thank you. I think it's cool. Like, I saw you doing this, and we're not, we're certainly not the biggest builders in town down here, but I think what you're doing to chat to people about the industry is awesome, because it's important to do, and understanding. I've listened to a couple what other people are doing. I find helpful for what we're doing, because everyone's doing stuff differently, and a lot of stuff better that you go, oh, wow, I need to start doing that. And I don't know, hopefully as well, you hear stuff that people aren't doing perfectly and you go, oh yeah, that's actually, sometimes I reckon it's better to hear from someone that's acknowledging the faux pas as well. But likewise, it's important to say, that person's doing great, let's hold them up and congratulate them for being awesome instead of pulling them down.
Well, Jesse, thanks so much, and really appreciate your time.
Cheers, mate.
That's it for today's episode of Constructing Mindsets. Remember, every conversation is a chance to shift the culture of construction. Subscriptions and reviews are always appreciated. Or to reach out if you're needing to improve performance on site by upskilling communication, mindset, and problem solving.